Hey guys, how you going? I'm going to chat today about outs. What are the outs we can make, particularly in a T-ball game we're going to talk about now for our beginners, and how are they made? For the fielding team, there's 3 types of outs they can make. Other than a strikeout, which in T-ball is basically self-inflicted, there's 3 ways that the fielding team can get the attacking team out. They can catch the ball, they can tag the runner, or they can get a forced out. And the first 2 are pretty easy. Forced outs are a little bit trickier and they take a little bit more explaining. So a catch. So a catch is pretty self-explanatory. If the ball gets hit and doesn't hit the ground before somebody catches the ball with their glove or their other hand, that batter is out. Okay, the batter is out. Something to keep in mind, and you might see some confusion on the base paths, and sometimes we don't teach this until a little bit after maybe their first year in T-ball, is when the ball is caught, all runners need to return to the base that they started on before they're allowed to advance. And that's called tagging up. Okay, so for example, if a runner comes off and starts running and the other team captures the ball and the other team manages to get the ball back to the base they started on before they get back there, then that's out. That's a double play. So generally we teach our young players, you see the ball in the air, you hold up, you keep your foot on the base until you see it either get caught or you know it's going to hit the ground or you see it hit the ground. So the second way they can get an out is to tag a runner. That means that the fielder has the ball in their hand or their glove and they touch the runner with the ball when they don't have their feet on the base. So if a runner is anywhere on the base paths and they don't have their foot or any of their body connected to a base and they get touched with the ball by the fielder, then they're out. Okay. Generally speaking, when we play with, we talk little kids and we talk about tagging, we make sure that they tag with 2 hands because that secures the ball, make sure that it doesn't get knocked out when they're trying to tag a runner. So yeah, you always want to try and teach your kids nice and early about tagging. Tagging is probably the easiest and most fun thing to teach because you can make so many games out of tag, bull rush, tip, all that kind of thing. And you want to teach them about that, but when you're doing that, just make sure you try and teach them to use 2 hands. They do it with 1 hand and nothing sure, I'm telling you, someone's going to run past them getting tagged and the ball just get knocked out of their glove or their hand. So the third way the fielding team might get us out is called a force play. So a force play is a little bit more tricky and takes a little bit more teaching. You definitely need to cover this a few times before it's going to sink in with a lot of the players. But a force play is basically if a runner has to run towards a base and the fielding team beats them to the base with the ball, they are out. So that's why it's called a force play, because the runner that they're getting out with the ball is forced to run. So for example, there is always a forced out at first base when the ball is hit. The batter always has to run to first base. That's what keeps the game moving. So there's always a forced out at first base. That's why you see so many plays at first base, because whenever the ball is hit, they can always throw it to first base to get that forced out of the batter running to first, because he is forced to run. Now keep in mind, we're only allowed to have 1 runner on each base. So, for example, if we have a runner on first base now and the batter hits the ball, the batter is forced to run to first. That means that runner on first base has no choice but to run to second base. So now we have 2 opportunities to get a forced out. We can get the batter out at first base, or we can get the runner out at second base. That continues all the way around the bases. So if we have runners on first, second and third, that means we can touch any base. We like to call that loaded bases, all right? Well, the bases are full. So that means any base that you pick the ball up and step on a base before that runner comes towards you and gets there first, that'll be a forced out. And this is how they do a lot of double plays and triple plays, if you ever see one, but is to get to 2 bases before 2 runners get there. So for example, you've got a runner on first base, the ball gets hit towards second base, they pick up the ball, step on second base, that means that the runner coming from first is now forced out, and then they throw it to first base. That means the batter who's running to first is forced out. So a force play takes a little bit more explaining, a little bit more training. You've got to do it a few more times at training, but it's definitely one of the things you want to work on in their first year, and you want to have gone through a few times just to make sure that they start getting the idea of it. It goes a long way to helping your kids understand the game and be able to play it more effectively, which in turn leads to enjoyment. Thanks, guys. I hope that was informative. If you've got anything else you'd like to hear me explain, or you've got some questions or even some comments or ways that you like to teach your kids how to get forced outs, let us know in the comments. That's it for today's episode of RBI Australia Inside the Game. Thanks for tuning in. If you picked up something new, make sure to share it with your team or hit replay. We'll be back soon with more tips, drills and insights to help you level up. And hey, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time, train smart, play hard and keep growing that game.